San Diego, bringing you all of the aspects of our port.
Yes, indeed. He was a city council member. He was the commissioner for the Unified Port of San Diego, and now he represents us in Washington. Of course, we're talking about Congressman Scott Peters joining us this morning to talk about all things port. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is much nicer than your other set.
You can come down here. We'll just all come down.
I'll come down here tomorrow, but you won't be here.
No, you'll be by yourself. But let's talk about, first of all, you were on the commission in 2009?
2009 to 2012, and I was the chairman in 2011.
And it was tougher times when it came to the economy. How do you see things, how they've progressed and have changed since then?
Well, you know, obviously, the port's business in terms of maritime rises and falls with the world economy because, as I think the captain said, 90% of goods are shipped overseas. So when the economy is good, we're getting a lot of cargo. So what we really wanted to do is we took the opportunity to plan for when times were better, you know, we've got some great assets here. We're always protecting them from people who decide they have better ideas, you know, for condos or hotels. And so we're just setting up for better times, which have come, fortunately.
Do you see that paying off now?
I think so, yeah, because we see, you know, I think the car imports in National City are up to the pre-recession levels. We're getting a lot more material into the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal. We're trying to do some improvements. I'm talking about the port now. The port's trying to do some improvements.
Which hat do you have
down there? And we're supporting their application for a federal grant of $15 million to do some improvements that would open up some more area to do some more business.
And then the cruise ship industry.
The cruise ships are coming back. And we worked really hard to get Disney when I was back in the Port Commission, and now they're in. And so that's an important part of our portfolio. And it's really important. The economic impact of each cruise ship that stays overnight here is a couple $1 million to the local economy. So that's really important.
It certainly is. And when you go back to Washington, sometimes people will be like, well, how can you advocate on behalf of the port? What is it that Washington does to help us here in San Diego? It seems like it's a world way.
Well, actually, we're part of a national ports network, and so one of my roles in Congress is as a member of the Ports Caucus. So we've got people from ports in Texas, the Great Lakes, the East and the West, who come together and talk about you know, this kind of ports as a part of our transportation policy. One of the things we're advocating for is the federal government's holding a lot of money in a harbor maintenance trust fund. We want to see that money invested in our ports, and so we're working together. It's actually Republicans and Democrats to try to make the port system work better, and that's a benefit to San Diego as well.
Does Washington as a whole understand how important our ports are?
Whenever you start a sentence with, does Washington understand?
Does Washington understand? I mean, because they're so land-based there. Do they understand the significance and the you know, the uniqueness of a port?
Oh, I think there's capacity there that for folks to understand it, and I come at it from two angles because I'm also a member of the Armed Services Committee. San Diego is one of 17 strategic ports that's also used by the military to deploy material and sometimes personnel, and so that's important. And people who are involved in transportation understand that the ports are part of a network, and that we need to invest in them. We're also facing some new competition from the Panama Canal, which will be expanded. That's just right around the corner, and so. Again, we're going to have to be investing in our ports, making sure that our infrastructure is keeping up with the rest of the world, because we're in competition every day, everywhere.
Let's talk about those investments, because you were just saying that you're trying to lobby in this caucus for more grant money for our port. Where would you like to see that money go? What were some of the improvements that have people from the port come to you and said, hey, Congressman, we need these things? Yeah,
well, I don't know if you talked to Joel Valenzuela. He's out here, but they've got a project that we've been talking about for a few years that would clear away some of the buildings that are really kind of in the way. I mean, they're kind of in the way of moving things around on the marine terminal, which is, you know, 96 acres, but only 96 acres. And that's going to provide them more flexibility to take in more kinds of cargo and to compete. And so we'd like to help them get the money to do that project in particular. But any kind of work where we're coordinating with transportation, coordinating with the Navy, trying to make things come together, there's a federal aspect to it. So I need to be aware of it. I like having the port background. I like, you know, knowing who to call and what questions to ask. And so there's always a coordination role with any of this stuff.
Let's talk more about security and homeland security and just the security of our base here. You said one of 17 strategic ports.
Right.
That's not really talked about much. What do you mean by that, and how significant is that?
No, it was a little bit frustrating as a port commissioner because, you know, the Navy doesn't want to talk about what it's doing, and the Marines what they're doing at the terminal in a military sense. There are reasons to be quiet about that. Sure. But I think San Diegans should know, and they should be proud of the fact that our ports are partners with the military, so that when troops or personnel or materials deployed overseas, our ports are playing a big part in that. That's one of the things, too, where we want to make sure that the federal government is aware that there's a national security component to these strategic ports like San Diego, so that we're supported not just in terms of infrastructure, but in terms of security. Because I know that everyone, that a lot of our enemies are aware of what we do there. We want to make sure that we're secure, and obviously that the people of San Diego are safe.
And if you've ever been out to the Point Loma Lighthouse, you know that since World War II, we've been that way.
Yeah,
and before.
And you know, that's part of our role. We're a military town. We're proud of our partnership in the national defense. It's an important part of our economy as well. And we want to make sure we have a good partnership that goes both ways with the federal government.
What do you see of the likelihood of those grants that you're hoping to get moved through? What's the likelihood of them actually, that money being released?
I don't know. It's part of a competitive program, and you know, it's one of these programs where there's a lot of applications for what seems like a lot of money until you try to divide it up. And so we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But we've written a letter of support. We'll advocate for a successful result, and I think we've been waiting for a few rounds, so maybe it's our turn.
How long are you home, and when are you going back?
I'm home this week, and I brought, it's Seattle weather with me, something like that.
Yeah, you really brought the gloom with you, man.
It's supposed to be nice this weekend.
But I'm home this week for Memorial Day and for my 29th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
I don't think they called Congress off for that, but it coincided well. And then we're back. June and July are probably the most heavily scheduled months as we do appropriations, and so we'll be busy.
Okay.
But I always love coming home, and I come home every weekend I can as well.
Well, the next time, back to the studios in Kearny Mesa.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
All right.
Sorry, man. All right, Congressman Scott Peters, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.